Hello and welcome to this special edition of Inside Sports. I'm your host, Todd Blackstock. On today's show, we're going to take a look at the history of the Cleveland, LA, Anaheim, and St. Louis Rams. We're going to weigh in on some of the major players who helped lure the Rams to St. Louis and get the Edward Jones Dome built originally back in 1995. Plus, we're going to celebrate the 15-year anniversary of the greatest show on turf's run to the Super Bowl championship, which coincided with the birth of Inside Sports. So stay with us for this and much more coming up next on Inside Sports. Hi, I'm Todd Blackstock, your host for City 16's newest show, Inside Sports.
We wanted Inside Sports to be inside. Some of the stories that you hear most of the times are stories that are just basically telling you, hey, what happened with a team and a certain player and how they're doing. But we wanted to go a little deeper and have stories that really have an impact on the community. Louis Neal was new to the staff.
He had called me originally. I was doing a lot of midnight basketball. He saw that I was really passionate about sports.
Todd Blackstock was a person who was recommended to me by Kara Savio. He has been the rock for Inside Sports. Inside Sports won us our first Emmy.
During Week 6 of the 2014 NFL season, the St. Louis Rams honored the members of the 1999 season's Super Bowl champions. Football fans in America will always remember this team as the greatest show on turf. And on today's Inside Sports Flashback, we're going to take you back to a story from back in early 2000. Let's take a look. At the start of the 1999 season, head coach Dick Vermeil and company had to take a step back and look at the mistakes of old in order to become the champion of new. Just how could the worst team in the NFL in 1998 with a disappointing 4-12 record attempt to become world champions? Well, it was going to take a little maneuvering. The first move was bringing in Mike Martz as the new offensive coordinator. It was a brilliant move. This wizard of offensive tactics began his transformation of the Rams by signing savvy veteran guard Adam Timmerman from the Green Bay Packers. All-pro running back Marshall Faulk came on board. Then Torrey Holt was drafted, and quarterback Trent Green was added to the squad. These key acquisitions were going to make the Rams the team to beat. But this new front line would suffer a major loss before the season even began. During a preseason game, star quarterback Trent Green fell to a season-ending knee injury, and it appeared that Martz's offensive wall was about to crumble. But Green's misfortune actually paved the way for another quarterback to lead the road to the Rams' success. Second-string quarterback Kurt Warner was now assigned to lead the team, and he performed like a seasoned veteran.
He's calm. He's calm. He's relaxed. For a guy whom is new to all of this, I'll tell you, when things get tough, his expressions in the huddle does not change. Eyes doesn't get big. He doesn't get real jittery in the pocket. He goes about his business as a professional. And for a guy whom first year in this league is starting and doing the things that he's doing, that's amazing.
Warner led the St. Louis Rams to something they'd never seen before, a winning season. His stats were Ram-tastic. Over 300 completions and 41 touchdown passes in a single season. He became the league's most valuable player. This farm boy from Iowa proved he had the right stuff.
I mean, everything he's done is a tremendous reflection of what a talent he is, and it's also a positive reflection on the coach's coaching.
It was win after win after win in the regular season. The Rams were now the NFC West champs. But in order to become the NFC champions, they would have to beat a team who had one of the most explosive offenses in the league. But the Rams stepped up to the challenge. They beat the Vikings 49-35 in an offensive shootout. And the fans were showing their support all the way. Most of them ready for the last stop on the ride to the Super Bowl, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Got a lot of memories, man. You know, a lot that were not on the football field. I mean, you know, things that happened that were said on charters, on the buses, on the practice fields, those things like that. But if I had to just give you one of my fondest memories, it would have to be, you know, Ricky Proe's catch in the NFC Championship game. You know, he'd been a consummate pro the entire year. Didn't play that much all season. He was in the 4 wide receiver set, and when his number got called to make a play, he was ready, and he performed miraculously. So that would have to be one of my fondest memories.
The whole year was special. Obviously, somebody will say, you know, winning the Super Bowl, that was really the pinnacle of what we done. But you know, I remember the first playoff game, the energy in that room, everybody was excited. The Rams have never been to the playoffs before, but I do remember, like, that's a staple, you know, because guys, we came out and we scored the first play and everybody was excited. So I do remember that moment.
Improvement in personnel. There were only 9 players left on the roster that went to the Super Bowl that we took over. They were all good players, but there was only 9 of them. There were 19 guys that had been there all 3 years. So the addition of real quality personnel, the addition of some new coaches, Mike Martz, outstanding, Al Saunders, outstanding, John Matsko, outstanding, Dana LeDuc, outstanding. They were all equivalent to first-round picks. But when you put Marshall Faulk in the backfield, you all of a sudden become a better offensive football team. And, of course, Kurt Warner wrote his own book.
15 years later, this team reunited for a weekend anniversary celebration. They are exclusively shown here in the tunnel before being honored at halftime, enjoying the moment while sharing memories with each other about the Rams' glory days like it was just yesterday. NFL Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk addressed this Monday Night Football crowd, and Super Bowl winning head coach Dick Vermeil gleamed proudly as he reaped praise on his former players, organization, and team which he so masterfully assembled. This team of champions brought the city of St. Louis its first 2 home playoff wins in the history of the NFL in St. Louis, and its only Super Bowl champion. Several of the honorees participated in a brief cameo of the old bob and weave, and these Gales of the Gridiron left the turf of the Edward Jones Dome in front of the raucous St. Louis fans who have had little to cheer about in over a decade. Let's now take in the moment through the lens of Inside Sports. Former Donut brother Tom Newton proudly displayed the Lombardi Trophy, while former Director of Media Relations Dwayne Lewis celebrated the milestone with a selfie with Marshall Faulk. With the San Francisco 49ers returning to the field, former All-Pro tight end Ernie Conwell spent some quality time with perhaps the greatest offensive line coach in NFL history and former Cardinal head coach Jim Hannafin, who courageously embraced the moment in what could be the last homecoming of the greatest show on turf in St. Louis.
It's scary how fast time flies. You know, 15 years. Imagine a lot of things that have happened in the world in the last 15 years, and here we're celebrating something that happened 15 years ago. It's like I said, it's scary.
Thank Georgia Frontier for having the courage and the foresight to bring the Rams to St. Louis.
And I'm so thrilled to be back and to be able to bring something to what I will always consider my hometown.
Today is the day that the dream of a team of our own is now a reality.
In 1995, having a new NFL team in St. Louis was a reality, but the Rams are a team with a history of moving around. The Rams were formed in Cleveland in 1936 and named after the hardworking players they had from Fordham University from Bronx, New York. They joined the National Football League in 1937 and were assigned to the Western Division to replace the St. Louis Gunners, who folded several years earlier. In 1945, the Rams won the NFL championship in controversial manner versus the Washington Redskins with a score of 15-14, and the organization rewarded their fans with a move to Los Angeles. The Coliseum was built in 1922 and was home of the 1932 Olympics. The LA Coliseum officials said they would house the Rams on one condition: they would integrate the team. In 1946, black players were not allowed to play in the NFL. The Rams broke the color barrier and signed UCLA players Kenny Washington and Woody Strode, who became the first black NFL players in the post-World War II era. In 1948, Rams halfback Fred Gerke painted horns on his helmet, and the team followed suit, making them the first modern pro football team to display helmet emblems. In the early 1950s, the Rams became the NFL's first team to have all their games televised nationally, mainly because of the team's quarterbacks, Bob Waterfield, Norm Van Brocklin, along with dazzling receivers Tom Fears and Leroy Crazy Legs Hirsch, who during that 51 championship season had almost 1,500 yards receiving and 17 touchdowns. In 1962, Dan Reeves bought out Fred Levy Jr., Bob Hope, and other partners, while the Rams' fearsome foursome defensive line of Rosie Greer, Merlin Olsen, Deacon Jones, and Lamar Lundley became household names and Hollywood stars. In 1967, the Rams became the first NFL team to draw over 1 million fans to its home games, and head coach George Allen was one of the first coaches to implement a special teams coach when they hired a young Dick Vermeil for those duties. In 1972, Robert Irsay bought the Rams for $19 million. Then things got very interesting as he traded the team to Carroll Rosenblum, who owned the glorious Baltimore Colts. He was also a notorious gambler in Atlantic City, and it was rumored that he frequently wagered on his own football teams, even in the presence of former commissioner and friend Bert Bell. It is implied that he funded and was involved with mobsters like Meyer Lansky, who Rosenblum bought 50% of Hotel Nacional in Cuba just before Castro took control. He died mysteriously swimming in an ocean in Miami in 1979, shortly after agreeing to move the Rams to Anaheim. And because of his mafia ties and public feuds, many people questioned the validity of the medical reports. In a 2007 article by John Eisenberg of Pressbox Baltimore, Rosenblum's son Steve said that his dad was a poor swimmer and never went out alone, and was quoted saying, if he went out alone that day, he was breaking a habit of a lifetime. In another bizarre twist, Rosenblum left the Rams to his second wife, Georgia, instead of his son, Steve. The executed will stated that Georgia would get 70% of the team, and his children would split the other 30%, while Steve would continue to run the organization. Georgia Frontiere was nicknamed Madam Ram. Many people believe she was the first female owner in the NFL. Well, that's incorrect. She is not even the first female owner to move an NFL team to St. Louis. In 1960, Violet Bidwell moved the NFL's oldest franchise, the Chicago Cardinals, to St. Louis after a study found it would be a great football market. There was a new multi-purpose stadium on the horizon, and the upstart AFL was eyeing the Lou as a new market for expansion. In 1962, Violet passed away, and her frugal son Bill became the owner. And after never hosting a playoff game in St. Louis, he moved the team to Arizona in 1987 because he didn't like the 21-year-old Busch Stadium.
He was such a stingy guy that the players, I remember, was about 5 degrees below zero. He wouldn't even give them tickets or sell them tickets. They had to wait in line before the game to get tickets for the game.
Bidwell couldn't even attend the games in the latter part of 1987 because of death threats. But when one door closes, another one opens. And 8 years later, it was Georgia Frontiere to the rescue, allegedly. She was born Violet Frances Irwin and grew up in St. Louis, where she attended Soldan High School. She followed her mother into show business and was a chorus girl and television personality, amongst other things. After being married 5 times, she hit the jackpot with number 6 after being introduced to Carroll Rosenblum by Joseph Kennedy at a party at his Palm Beach estate. The Rams made it to the Super Bowl in 1979 and were very solid in the 1980s, led by star running back Eric Dickerson. But in 1987, after an ugly contract dispute, the Rams traded the future Hall of Famer to the Colts. The 1990s in Anaheim were frustrating for the Rams. The team was marred in losing and began to trim payroll by parting ways with star players like Kevin Green and quarterback Jim Everett. alienating a shrinking fan base while playing in front of small crowds in a 30-year-old stadium. So it was time to look for greener pastures. Frontiere attempted to move the team to Baltimore, but the NFL said no. She began flirting with the idea of moving the team to St. Louis, but then Commissioner Paul Tagliabue was not enthusiastic about that until she threatened to sue the NFL. Well, she not only was approved by the league, she received hundreds of millions of dollars to move to St. Louis, along with an outrageous lease agreement with an infamous escape clause in the deal. And while Georgia Frontiere eventually moved the Rams to her native home, it was local beer distributor Jerry Clinton who did most of the groundwork trying to lure the NFL back to St. Louis.
The people may remember Fran Murray. Fran was brought to St. Louis by Mayor Vince Shamel. He held a $10 option on the New England Patriots. I knew people in Jefferson City. Fran had a lot of great ideas. He had no money. We knew that going in. And the idea was to get a dome stadium built and go for an expansion franchise. If that didn't work, Fran had 49% ownership on the New England Patriots. We didn't think we would need to do that, bring the Patriots to St. Louis. In fact, I was always against that, but at least it was a backup. And at any rate, I had to make a decision. And I asked my lawyer at the time, I said, what is this going to cost? And he said, well, the legal portion would be at least $2 million for the legislative work. And I went, wow, well, let me think about this, because I know there's going to be public relations work, there's going to be travel and entertainment to woo the league or the National Football League to get an expansion team. It's going to be a very considerable amount of money.
Well, Bill Bidwell had already announced his plans to move the St. Louis football Cardinals to Arizona. And our local leaders put this new challenge on the shoulders of Clinton, who brought in Hall of Fame running back Walter Payton as a minority ally.
They proposed a plan to me, and the only thing I didn't like about the plan, that I was the only one that was going to finance this program. Well, we sent letters out, and we talked to over 30 people that qualified, and we were turned down 29 times. And Tom Holly of the Grandpa stores and recently of Deals, Nothing Over a Dollar stores, he was the only guy that came in with me for $250,000, and so I footed the rest of the money.
The expansion process began to drag on, and the project became increasingly more expensive.
Well, it escalated on us and got away from our ability to be able to raise that kind of money. And other groups were formed in St. Louis, and that was only after the stadium agreements had all been reached and a lease had been developed and was in my name. And that lease provided for $900 million of revenue over the next 30 years. And probably not surprisingly, other members of the community, some of them were the ones that turned me down for $250,000, formed an organization called Gateway Football Incorporated, and I believe that was the name, and they tried to get the lease from me. And they used some of the media people to try to do that and get their own football team. So it became a little bit sticky there, and I was determined that if I must give up that lease under, with the pressures of going on, I would get my money back at least, maybe not for the services, but at least the cash that I put into the deal. And the league really wanted me in as one of the owners. We could have worked out a deal very easily, but they just simply weren't in the mood to do that.
All of a sudden, from Columbia, Missouri, here comes Stan Kroenke. And Stan comes riding in on his white horse. And they get up in Chicago, and they say, we have Stan Kroenke on board now. And they had nearly $1 billion in assets, and to show the NFL owners that, hey, this is going to go. But guess what? They picked Charlotte. 6 weeks later, another meeting in Chicago, number 30 to be announced. There's no way that St. Louis is going to miss out.
Within the agreements that we had structured, I had 2 years to go out and get an existing NFL team to come to St. Louis if we failed to get an expansion team. Well, they denied me that opportunity because they kept throwing money at the Rams. Well, I was the first guy to ever talk to the Rams, and John Shaw and I had a very good meeting about relocating the team to St. Louis, but their ownership needed a lot of debt to be serviced, and And Tom Eagleton was just the guy to throw the money at him. So they went out and represented the city under a name of Fans Incorporated, and they threw the money at the Rams, and probably a lot more than we needed to do. I don't blame the Rams at all. I would have taken the money too. But there were other teams that were ready to make a move at that time. And I can tell you this, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could have been had for $187 million. We had had a couple of meetings with them. The Houston Oilers were ready to move to St. Louis. The Seattle Seahawks were ready for a move. There were a lot of teams that we could have enticed to come to St. Louis just for the price of the lease. And that could have been made available without any problem.
As I looked out of my office window, I could see the dome going up, you know, brick by brick, mortar by mortar. It dawned on me, I said, oh my God, what a humiliation it's going to be to this town. I kept looking at that dome coming into play, and I said, we got to get a football team in there.
Jerry Clinton took the lead. If it wasn't for Jerry Clinton initially, I mean, I'm not really sure that the idea ever would have got off the ground that the state's going to pay so much.
I think that it was a unifying kind of a project, something that has never been done before. So it was a significant accomplishment just to bring the city, the county, and the state all together to make this thing happen.
It's mind-boggling to think that ever once the state of Missouri, the city of St. Louis, the St. Louis County would join hands, shake it once, and say, we're going to go commit financial resources and talent and leadership to this project and really work together.
It is the finest football facility, dome facility in the country, bar none, and it will be until the next one is built, and they're going to have to build quite a Taj Mahal to top this.
It is a multi-purpose facility. It will be football one day, it will be a car show the next day, it will be a trade show the next day, it will be a conference of huge magnitudes the next day.
In my public life, I've had an opportunity to do a lot of things, but I have never given a speech in a domed football stadium before. I feel that I'd be better off passing or punting or something else, but I still feel like it's first down instead of fourth.
The stadium will be equipped with a Magic Carpet AstroTurf. The whole carpet will float out towards its pre-positioned location. We'll turn the air off. Carpet will settle back right where it's supposed to be. Close the lid, zip on some sideline pieces, and bring on the football players, and you're ready to play.
I had a wound, and today I can tell you that with the help of Mr. Football, and now with the help of Georgia Frontieri, who I'm going to name Ms. Football, with their help, the wound is healed. How does it feel?
Stan, we're partners. You're the vice chairman of the board, and you're going to have to really work hard because I'm counting on you.
Well, Kroenke and his group of investors pulled a fourth quarter coup, and the taxpayers paid a huge percentage of the bill, and Frontieri sold 40% of the team to Stan Kroenke, while fans and players alike look forward to having the NFL back in St. Louis. What was going on in your mind making the move from LA to St. Louis?
Well, with rumors swirling around right now, that's nothing new to me. I mean, I've been through it before, but at the same time, once we decided to make the move and we were informed that we are going to St. Louis, you know, guys were kind of, it was a lot of emotions. You were excited, you were kind of sad. Guys who had played in Los Angeles for a while ended up coming to St. Louis. But once we got here, you know, we started to learn about this city. We started to learn about, you know, seeing different seasons. The weather change. You got everything from hot summers to cold winters. And just the people. The people were genuine. They were hungry for football. And I think we satisfied that hunger.
Well, the Rams certainly did satisfy that hunger, and it seemed like football would be here to stay. But more late-game maneuvering makes it appear that St. Louis paid handsomely to rent the LA Rams for a couple of decades. After Georgia Frontieri passed away in 2008, her daughter Lucia Rodriguez and son Chip Rosenblum inherited the team. And after putting the Rams up for sale, Illinois businessman Shahid Khan agreed not only to purchase the Rams, but promised to keep the team right here in St. Louis. But at the 11th hour, Kroenke exercised a clause which enabled him the right to buy the other 60% of the Rams. When the Rams organization fields winning teams, the Dome actually offers a huge home field advantage.
The fans here were great. Every time we played in this stadium during the GSOT's era, there was a distinct advantage with our fans. I mean, opposing teams didn't like coming in here.
It makes it difficult for that opposing offense to hear the snap count, to hear the quarterback make calls, all those things. So dome field advantage, it was something that played a key part in our success in '99.
Well, the Dome was a great place. It was a great place for us, and it's still a great place. Probably needs some remodeling and that kind of stuff, but it was a great place. And the volume was outstanding, especially once we got it going. I mean, they talk about Seattle and they talk about Kansas City, but when you got inside this Dome and you were playing well, it was, I mean, it immediately, you left the stadium with a headache just from the noise for the whole time.
The Rams have not had a winning season since 2005, and their 3-season record between 2007 and 2009 is the worst in NFL history since the Chicago Cardinals during World War II. St. Louis football fans have not had a lot to cheer about over the history of NFL in town, but they continue to support the team, filling the raucous Edward Jones Dome to roughly 89% capacity with continuous rebuilding and invisible ownership. That support does appear to wane a bit with the announcement that Kroenke will build that stadium in Southern California.
I think it should challenge them. It should challenge the fans to come out and show their support. I mean, anyone can sit at home and just discuss the team from afar, but the biggest thing you could do is come out, support your team, be there for your team, show the upper brass how much you love this team and that this team is a part of the community. And that speaks volumes, I think, to the people upstairs. And, you know, to do it that way as opposed to just being, you know, nonchalant about it and letting the team walk away. Just come out and support. Buy your jerseys, wear your jerseys, and support the team.
You know, the St. Louis Cardinals move, and then you get another NFL team. I think the fan base is a little shaky. They're a little leery. So, you know, hopefully this team can stay. Like I said, being a St. Louis Ram for the majority of my career, this is our home. This is where we had those successful years, and you know, I would love for him to stay.
I haven't talked to Stan Kroenke in a couple of years, so I have no insight. I think for the Rams to be here, the Rams, St. Louis has to do what other cities do for their teams, appreciate the value and the contribution of that team and support them and make it a sound business venture for the people involved. And I can't believe that Stan Kroenke would automatically want to leave here. He's a Missouri guy. He helped, as you said, bring the team here. He's experienced success here. He has a lot of friends here. He has a lot of loyal alums coming back like we are right now after 15 years. He's got people that respect and admire him like I do. And but I think in the business world, you always do what you have to do what's best for the entire organization. Hopefully it'll include St. Louis.
St. Louis is a great city. It is. The Rams have done great here. And, you know, if they go back, you know, that's not my call. If they go, I live in L.A., we'd be happy to have them back. But if they stay here, I think, you know, they've been great here also.
It seems like they want an expansion team there is what it sounds like.
I don't know, you know. Whoever can come up with the money, that's what it's all about, is the money for sure.
Under head coach Jeff Fisher, the Rams are a solid, young, and up-and-coming team, especially with their defense and the second coming of a fearsome foursome, led by Robert Quinn, Chris Long, Michael Brockers, and 2014 Rookie of the Year, Aaron Donald. In 2014, the Rams defeated both Super Bowl teams from 2013 and made life miserable for players like Peyton Manning. The Rams have a history of chasing rainbows, and it is possible the Rams could finally return to relevancy and make the playoffs and maybe even a Super Bowl in 2015 if things fall their way. Just remember, 70 years ago in 1945, the Rams were NFL champions and then moved to the glitz of Los Angeles. Let's hope history doesn't repeat itself this time. But Kroenke seems to have his sights set on a return to L.A. In 2014, Forbes magazine estimated his wealth at $6 billion and his wife, a Walmart heir, at $6 billion as well. Ironically, he's named after Enos Slaughter and Stan Musial, two St. Louis icons in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Oh, the irony. And we'll see how the next 15 years of sports in St. Louis play out. For Inside Sports, I'm Todd Blackstock. We'll see you next time.